What a fun night in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Pacers set so many scoring franchise records for a half and for a game. Victor Wembanyama plays and the Pacers defend him pretty well in a win. They're back over 500. We'll talk about it all today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today we're talking about some records. Holy smokes! Did the Pacers respond to their most disappointing loss of the season on Saturday to the Hornets in a big way? If they had beaten the Hornets, they'd currently be sitting 5-2 with the top offense in the NBA. Instead, that's not reality, and they should not be talked about like that. But they are 4-3. They did just make up for all of the 50-point lossing that really hurt their net rating against Boston. They smoked the Spurs in their building, the 3-3 Spurs when they came in on Monday night, 152-111. We'll talk about a lot that went on with that game. 152, tying the NBA franchise record for the Pacers. 86 points and 1/2, tying the Pacers franchise record for points and a half. Everybody went crazy, and they did all that with their leading score under 25 points, which is just unbelievable. Victor Wembanyama played. Credit to him and credit to the Spurs for that. How did the Pacers defend him? What was the experience like just seeing him in person? And Obi Toppin defended him quite well and had his season high in points with 19. He deserves some spotlight tonight. We can go all over the place because it was quite the night for the Indiana Pacers in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And Rick Carlisle got his 900th win against Greg Popovich. Very, very fitting. So lots of places we can go here. We'll just start talking about ridiculous point totals. 150 freaking 2 points. How did the Pacers do this? They couldn't miss, first of all. At one point in the game, they were 13 for 19 from three. I mean, that is, you're never, like, no one is stopping that level of production. Benedict Mather went 0 for 2 from deep. Every other player who attempted a three in this game made a three in this game. It was unbelievable. Obi Toppin hit one. Miles Turner made his only one. Bruce Brown hit one. Tyrese Halliburton hit almost half of his. Buddy Hield was 5 for 6. Aaron Nesmith was 3 for 4. Nembhard was 3 for 5. I mean, they were just pouring them in. So early in the game, especially, they were on fire. After that point where they were 13 for 19, they only went 7 for their next 19. Didn't matter. They still were over 50% for the game. That will do it. That will do it. They're moving the ball really well. 38 assists for the second time this season. They never went over 36 last year. They've done it twice now in 7 games to start the season. This team can move the ball when they're lasered in with the passing. 38 assists, and nobody got to 10. 8 for Nembhard, 8 for Halliburton. A lot of guys between 2 and 4, right? That is what this team wants to me. Halliburton can go a little higher, of course, but this team's at their best when they're playing like this, so the ball's just boom, 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 player to player, player to player. And they had it today. Everybody got it moving, and it was fantastic. And then the big number for them, something they haven't been so good at this season, 23 free throw attempts. They had not been getting to the line very often in terms of scoring in this game all season, right? They only have been over 20 2 other times. The loss to the Bulls and the win over Cleveland in the in-season tournament game last week. 23 is their third most attempts in a game this season, but they made 22, which is their most in a game this season. They only had made over 20 in that Bulls game before. So that all put together leads to an insane offensive game. Every time down the floor, they're either getting a good look from three, like 20 for 38 is unbelievable, getting to the foul line, 22 for 23 is unbelievable, or setting up a good shot somewhere else, right? The 35 makes on twos is still a pretty good number. And they actually, despite making so many threes and getting fouling so much, had more points in the paint than the Spurs, right? Like, they just ran through them. It was unbelievable. And like, every stat just screams Pacer dominance. Fast break points, Pacers 21 more. Bench points, Pacers 24 more than the Spurs. Their lowest scoring quarter was 33 tonight. The Spurs' highest scoring quarter tonight was 33. Like, they just kicked their butts. And it's hard to find a player like Tyrese Haliburton maybe was the most off shooter on the team. He went 9 for 19. Maybe Bruce Brown. Like, everybody poured him in. Ben Mathurin, great surge in the third quarter. It was the most Ben Mathurin-like surge he's had all season. It was only a glimpse, right? No one played a lot because it was a blowout. He played 22 minutes, 10 points, 4 for 8 from the field. Obi Toppin, we'll get to him later in way more detail. 6 for 11. 6 free throws for Obi Toppin on his way to a season-high 19 points. Miles Turner was 5 for 7 and got to the free throw line 4 times. Bruce Brown was 3 for 7. Tyrese Haliburton was 9 for 19. And that's like the worst two combined guys, and they combined for 12 assists instead. Buddy Hield only missed 1 shot. Aaron Nesmith was 5 for 8. Jalen Smith did not miss a shot. Andrew Nembhard was over 2 from 2, but 3 for 5 from deep. It was unreal. Isaiah Jackson had to be in the rotation because of Wembanyama, and he was awesome. He had a great game, and he didn't miss a shot either. Like, everybody who played did their job on offense, kept the ball moving, kept stuck to the game plan, reacted well to their style, right? If you're going to play the style the Pacers want, up-tempo, and they did the thing again where even after makes, they're rushing out to get the ball. You could tell they were trying to shove it down their throats, and it helped that the Spurs played an OT game on Sunday and were a little gassed, but the Pacers shoved it down their throats. Pacers got to their identity whenever they wanted, and that helped them get into their early offense, play the high-paced style, and just totally dominate this basketball game. So credit to them for doing so, and everybody who played did well. But the point I was getting to when talking about their identity is Haliburton always talked about the repetitiveness of their randomness, which sounds silly, but they're trying to be unpredictable, basically, right? They're trying to come up the floor, and they have like set actions, but they're not like calling plays or like specific, like they have some set plays, but they're not like trying to get specific guys to shots. They just feel it and react to what the defense is doing. Well, if they're all doing that in sync and they're all reacting to each other very well, that's when their offense looks at their best. And that's why they've now twice scored over 140 this season. That's why they had 86 points in one half, which is just ridiculous. I mean, that's on that 86, like that's 172 points in a game. They are not going to do that twice in a row, but it was unbelievable what they did in the first half to the poor Spurs. At halftime, the Pacers were 14 of 22 from deep, had not missed a free throw, only had 5 turnovers, and had 20 assists. Like, they just wiped the floor with the poor Spurs. It was ridiculous, and that's how you get franchise records. They had a chance to stand alone. The 152 the first time, if you'll remember it. I think Domantas Sabonis returned for this game. I can't remember. It was in Oklahoma City 2 seasons ago. They scored 152 against the Thunder in OKC. I don't know why I remember that game so well, but they scored 152 then. They've scored 150 before in the 1980s against the Nuggets. And then this was their third time ever the Pacers have hit 150. They get to 152, which ties the record. And it was very funny at the game. So they get to 152 on a Jarace Walker free throw with 1 minute and 6 seconds to go. And that is like, generally they were up 40 at that point, 41. I can't remember. They were up a lot. And so you're not like trying to score, but it's like embarrassing to like dribble out the clock like 3 possessions in a row. So some teams just take like a token shot. So I was curious if the Pacers would go for the record or not. And they did. They took one more shot. Jarace Walker took a little floater with about 40 seconds to go. He missed. The Spurs scored on their next possession, and then they did the token turnover, and the clock ran out, and TJ McConnell's dribbling near midcourt. And Rick Carlisle said after the game, like, yeah, we're, it's a respect thing. We're not scoring there. McConnell in the moment was like kind of aware that like maybe a record was at stake, but he's not going to shoot, right? He knows. So he's getting booed. Even though they're up by 40 something. He does not shoot. He should not have shot. If Jarace Walker made the floater, they would have got to 154. They tied the record. It was still very cool to see and be there. And they did it because they couldn't miss from 3. The ball was moving very well. And for the first time this season, they got to the foul line and then made the free throws. Perfect offensive game from the Pacers. Exactly who they want to be on that end of the floor. Everybody played the role they expected. Let's highlight some Obi Toppin. Definitely his best game of the season. Both ends of the floor. It wasn't close. Big ups to Obi for that. He deserves some love for how he played. We're going to talk about it in the second segment of this show. Before we talk some Obi Toppin, we're going to talk some FanDuel. Get going this NFL season. Oh my gosh, what a fun week of real football. And you can score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook right now. New customers over on FanDuel will get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. If your team wins, that's $150. Heck yes, if you think my Vikings are going to keep rolling with a new quarterback, there you go. Win some money there. If you think the Colts are going to keep going with the soft schedule down the stretch, put your money there. If you get it right, $150 in bonus bets. If you think of joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get on the action than right now with the NFL rolling, with the NBA off and running, the NHL's here. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including player props, spreads, and over-unders, and more, your faves. So visit FanDuel.com/lockdown and kick off the NFL season with FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Clippers, because James Harden debuted for the Clippers on Monday, and they lost. And you know who didn't lose on Monday? The 76ers, who kicked some butt. Quality of opponents very different between those two teams. But man, check out those shows for how those teams are handling the post-trade era. And now you never have to hear about that trade ever again, because actual basketball games are being played, and that is way cooler. I really want to talk about Wembanyama because it's almost like chronicling history. But we'll talk about him in the third segment. I only say that now because part of talking about Obi Toppin's game is also talking about Wembanyama, because you heard Jimmy and I talk about this yesterday. We were talking about Wembanyama. Who's going to guard him for the Pacers? I said I think it's going to be Obi. It's the only option that makes any sense to me because of the way the Spurs line up, which is smart of them. They start Zach Collins at the 5, and Zach Collins can shoot a little, but he's brutish too. He's a good screener, right? He's perfect for the Spurs, really. And he's a good enough finisher on the basket, but he's kind of more ground bounded on the interior. So he can spread it a little bit, but not really. And all that to say, Obi's not going to be as good on a strong guy in the post, and Miles Turner's better when he's around the basket more. Turner should be on Zach Collins, and none of the guards are tall enough to handle Wemby. There were some hilarious possessions. One of Wembanyama's, but I'll talk about him in the third segment. But Obi was the only guy that made any sense to me, right? And they're going to have to figure something out when Obi's not in the game. But they did it. They put Obi Toppin on him. And not only did Toppin defend him pretty well, Wembanyama finishes 3 of 12 from the field. He also had his best offensive game of the season, and it wasn't even close. Obi Toppin, 19 points today. Sweet dunk in transition, made a 3. But the big thing for me, and I already said this in the first segment about the whole team, but specifically Toppin, who led the team in this category, 6 for 6 from the foul line, 2 steals. He's good in transition. How about you get the team into transition yourself? Plus 25. An awesome game from Toppin. Definitely his best game of the season. Not particularly close to me, with no shade to his other performances. He was pretty good against the Wizards. He was pretty good against the Celtics. He was awesome on both ends in this game, and it deserves a lot of ups. What did we learn about this? Well, I think that Wembanyama, funnily enough, right now is like the perfect guy for him to guard. He's athletic, but not the fastest. Well, Wembanyama's tall and is not that fast. Wemby wasn't at peak power in this game, but like ironically, Obi could kind of stay in front of him and like jump up and high and contest him. There was one hilarious one that we got to ask Obi about after the game. Wembanyama took a jumper from the right baseline, like a long 2, like 20-footer, and Obi jumped as high as he can, and he's so athletic, right? And he got way up. He's probably 10 feet in the air, and he fouled him on the wrist. Like, there's literally no other player on the planet that you're not blocking that shot if you're Obi Toppin, except for Wembanyama. Perfect effort on defense, didn't matter. And that's just what he had to deal with all night. But he did a great job. He made his life hard. He stayed in front of him. He defended him well. And then he had his own shots on offense. And it was the 8 2-pointers that kind of stood out in this game for a couple reasons. One, he's only attempted 8 shots in a game once this season. Opening night, he took 9. In this game, he took 8 twos. In the opening night game, he took 4 twos. In fact, let me read you how many 2-point shots Obi Toppin has taken per each game this season. Wizards, 4. Cavs, the first round, 4. Bulls, 3. At Boston, 5. Home, second round against Cleveland, 5. And then the Hornets on Saturday, 5. This game getting up to 8. You'll notice two things there. One, this was far and away the highest number. And two, that number's trending upward. Something I asked him early in camp was about, there's a whole new thing by a mile for him. And he's talked about the opportunity and how that's good for him. But like, there's a really stylistically big adjustment to the Knicks. And like, we can see the transition stuff and how he's supposed to fit, but like, he's got to do it and the game's going to happen. So I asked him, like, do you feel like you're figuring out where your shots are going to come from? He's like, yeah, it's new, but yeah, I do. And now I think you're seeing that most of his threes are going to be corner threes, and he's figuring out where those inside the arc shots are going to come from and how that's a better shot diet for him. 5 for 8 on twos today for Obi Toppin. You could tell where he's finding those crevices. Some of them are in the open floor still where he's really good, but some of them are shots that he's getting himself. And oh, by the way, he got fouled 6 times. So really the attempts he was getting inside the arc is a higher number than that. So credit to him for, first of all, figuring out how to kind of pop, because this wasn't meant as an insult, but like somebody else was, and I were talking about this, but like sometimes his best trait on offense is just kind of being a chameleon, and you don't even necessarily realize exactly where he is because he's spacing the floor effectively, or because his cut makes the defense rotate or panic a little bit because he's a good finisher. And so someone else scores, or like some other action happens and Obi Toppin's not involved and they score. And that's still, he is still being a positive impact player, but you don't notice as much, right? Well, in this game, you totally noticed. He was around the ball all the time. He was making good plays. He was finishing them himself when he had the ball. And the 2-point thing, I think, is what really stood out, just how much he was making it happen inside the arc. Now, caveats abound. He's been playing with the starters all season, and the bench groups have defended much better. But the Pacers' offensive rating is currently better with Toppin on the floor than off. That does not surprise me at all, because he's playing with the starters. But still, that is a key part of his season, is that he's been an elevator for them a little bit on that end of the floor. The defense is the opposite direction because the Pacers bench has defended really well and their starters have defended poorly. But in this game, you really saw a lot of the things right clicking for him in terms of getting to the right spots, finding his crevices inside the arc, and being an impact player on the defensive end, which is not something I expect from him every night, right? We've seen him struggle on defense more often than succeed this season. But in this game in particular, he defended quite well. He is uniquely qualified to try to defend Victor Wembanyama, and he did quite a good job. And he finished plays on offense. What more can you ask of him, right? That's kind of the game you would want as the Pacers. The only thing he didn't do that he has been doing this season is rebound, right? That's been his biggest area of impact to me, is on the glass. Rick Carlisle challenged him earlier in the season to be a rebounder, right? Here's his rebounds in each game this season: 4, 4, 8, 2, 4, 4. So today is actually tied for his lowest with that Boston game where there were no rebounds to get because the Celtics made every shot. This was probably his worst rebounding game, but given who he was defending and where he was on the floor, that wasn't necessarily his job so much in this game. And I do think there's some correlation between him getting some transition opportunities, not all, like he had a lot of half-court points today, but some correlation between the rebounding numbers and the point total. So they're finding the balance with him. He's figuring out where his shots are coming from. He also defended very well. He had a wonderful game. He deserves a lot of praise for his best game of the season. And it was a big part of the Pacers kicking some San Antonio butt today. We'll see if Toppin can maintain this. He led the team in minutes today. That actually jumped out at me before he even started to take off and have a big game. I tweeted this. He played almost the whole first quarter. He didn't come out until like a minute and something to go. And that was new for the Pacers rotation. Carlisle's kind of been mixing and matching who that fifth starter is with the bench sometimes today. And we saw some other stuff, like Isaiah Jackson played today because of Wembanyama. And so this was just in general a little different. But Obi Toppin was in much later than normal. So he played it in different units. That also, I think, helped him a little bit. We'll see how this trend continues. But a promising game for the new Pacers forward. His best one in his 7th one, and his highest scoring game by 8 points. Hopefully something he can build on for this Pacers team, who next play on Wednesday against the Jazz, a big team. He's going to be needed against them too. Wemby was here. I really want to talk about it. I think it was just awesome. It was everything I hoped. Not that his performance was awesome, but just like the spectacle of it and how the Pacers handled it, which was pretty dang good. And some of the highlight plays, I just want to talk about it because it's his only trip to Indy of the entire season. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. And we're going to talk about Wemby and what he did against the Pacers. Before we do that, though, I'm going to talk to you guys about the great people over at Jace Medical. We spend a lot of time talking together, you and I. We get fired up on wins and losses and who starts and who sits. I do a lot of that, who starts and sits. Whoops. I'm thankful for that connection we have. And today, I want our chat to be a little more personal. I just learned that you can get a 1-year supply on meds from Jase Medical. You realize what that means? Bring on extended travel, bring on the next natural disaster or supply chain issue. You're covered, my friend. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for whatever prescription you may need. And this is possible because of our friends at Jace Medical. Go online right now at jasemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jace: I am thankful for the service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year's supply. I also ordered an antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than normal pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone. If you or someone you love would like to get some peace of mind by having a year's supply of any daily med, go to jasemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use the promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. That's jasemedical.com. Promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. Check out Locked On Spurs for your second listen. Dougie, McBuckets, and co. Victor Wembanyama as well. Jeff Garcia will have the latest on Spurs land. 3-4 for the Spurs. 2 awesome wins against the Suns last week. Wemby had 38 in one of those games. He did not have 38 in this game. It was fun to see McDermott, first of all. For those of you who have been following the Pacers or the show for a long time, you'll know that Doug McDermott had very confusing shooting percentages with the Pacers. I'm going to pull them up while I'm talking because I did not remember that I wanted to talk about this. But he always was an incredible road shooter and not a great shooter in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. In fact, for the Pacers during the 2019-20 season, he shot 33% in Gainbridge Fieldhouse and 53% on the road. So I wanted to know, is Doug McDermott a road shooter, or is something specific to Gainbridge the problem? Well, he was back with the Spurs today, and he made his three. 17 points. He led the Spurs in scoring. He was 4 for 6 from deep. So it's something about it being a road game, apparently. This is not a real thing, but it is kind of weird how often it happened for Doug McDermott. Let's talk about Wembanyama. It was crazy. He has made the list of guys I watch warm up. The only other guy I go out of my way to watch his entire warm-up start to finish is Steph Curry. I watch a lot of LeBron's warm-up too. Maybe I'm a sucker for players, but it was so cool. Like he's just so unique with the handle and the size. And like I was standing like right next to him when he was working on, he would catch the ball from a coach and he would pump fake 1 dribble 3. And he made 6 out of 7. And he's 7'5". And like, yeah, NBA players make empty gym shots look so easy, but at that size, it's just unbelievable. Like there's a reason I wrote a story. It's shorter, but I chatted with Obi Toppin and Miles about him because Miles Turner worked out with him a few summers ago. And they're just like, dude, it's like you've just never seen anything like it before in terms of the skill size combo. And like there's been some guys with the skill and some guys with the size. There's some close comps, but like it's just so rare and unique. And it's worth the spectacle. It's absolutely crazy. The picture I took, I didn't tweet this one, but I shared it with my friends, was him in the layup lines before the game. He's standing in front of Keldon Johnson. Keldon Johnson is 6'6", and they're literally a foot different. Like, he's just huge. He makes Keldon Johnson look tiny. A foot difference, like Miles Turner and TJ McConnell, is not a foot difference, and that's a huge height difference, right? It's crazy, right? So, first of all, I was curious how they would defend him. Obi, I thought would be the answer, and I was right. That went pretty well. Like I mentioned in the last segment, credit to Obi Toppin. He stayed in front of him. He jumped up and defended his shots like crazy. But what the Pacers really did well is they really made it hard for him to drive. They crowded his space when he tried to put it on the floor. It's hard for him to post up because he's not super strong yet. I think he'll get a lot stronger in the NBA, or he'll get a really good turnaround fadeaway and just be unguardable. But he drives a lot for his twos right now. So the Pacers would just crowd him and try to turn him over or try to force him into a tough shot. And that worked really well. He went 1 of 7 from 2, right? That was really impressive for the Pacers. And a big part of their win was being able to make it hard for him inside the arc. They fouled him sometimes. He had 6 free throw attempts, and the Pacers fouls in general were tough for their big men. That's why they turned to so many guys. But I thought that was a good game plan, and Toppin being able to kind of stick with them was a big part of that. Other guys certainly helped, but credit to Obi for that. The funny matchups in terms of like his aura and his size were when the moments the Pacers, because like I said, their rotation was weird because they totally dominated. And Wembanyama didn't even play half the game, mostly because they were on a back-to-back, but also because they got their butt kicked. But like there were so Turner played less than 21 minutes and Toppin played 27. So there were some moments where it was Nesmith at the 4. Nesmith 16 minutes because this poor guy had to hustle so much trying to guard somebody over a foot taller than him. There was a funny moment where Wembanyama scored, or I think he got fouled, and the two guys on him were Nesmith and Nembhard trying to double him in the post. They had no chance. It was comical. And I don't mean that to laugh at those guys. They're doing everything they can. I think he didn't score. He got fouled and went to the line, but it's just, you can't switch, right? You have to keep size in front of him. It was just a spectacle unlike anything else. And like just being able to see him handle the ball the way he could at his size was ridiculous. Clearly a lot of NBA players are like in awe of what he's able to do. Carlisle before the game, talking about a lot of that stuff too. And what, Carlisle keeps calling him the new age center, right? The big man who can handle and do all of these things. Miles Turner's exact quote, one of them was, "I've never seen anything like it." Obi, one of Obi's teammates in college at Dayton, Ryan Mikesell, went and played overseas in France last year, right? So Obi had heard about him from him. And Obi said, like, you can't guard him, right? Like, there's just nothing you can do. It's funny to hear that from Obi because Obi did guard him pretty well in this game. But the Pacers were certainly in awe of what he's going to be. Carlisle's quote from last Friday was, "He's everything that was advertised just in terms of impact, skill, ridiculous highlights, things that we've never seen before." So worth the price of admission because, one, he's like a spectacle in and of himself. Like, he's just so big that you naturally follow him during the game. And you don't see anything like that. I apologize. My voice is wearing down. I'm a little stuffy. It was awesome. And he won't be an Indy for the rest of the season. And he didn't even play good. He was kind of bad, especially for standards. 3 for 12. But he still had a double-double. And they still were only, this is still bad, let me be clear, only with some air quotes, -9 in his minutes. They were -32 and not his minutes. So that does make him look a little bit better. On a night where his team was terrible, they were at least like credibly good, incredibly competitive in his minutes. Credit to the Pacers. They had a great game plan and it worked. Obi defended him very well. Nesmith fought like crazy on him and did a pretty good job. Isaiah Jackson. Oh my gosh, this was beautiful. Weak side rotation from Isaiah Jackson as Wembanyama's turning and trying to do a left-hand dunk where he just dunks because he can reach over his man. And Isaiah Jackson came over from the weak side and got it before it hit the backboard of the rim. Sick block. Isaiah Jackson also uniquely qualified to kind of do well in that matchup with his athleticism. Jalen Smith played well, so it won't matter for anything long-term in terms of minutes at the 5. But Isaiah Jackson was really good in this game. Really good. The fouls were like kind of intentional given who they were playing against, but he didn't miss a shot and defended at a high level and was a +12 in 15 minutes. Credit where credit is due. We got to see Jarris Walker at the end of this game. He had a couple nice passes again to assist. I continue to think that's going to be his best offensive skill right away. Ben Shepherd made a 3 again. Jordan Nwora made a 3. TJ McConnell had 4 assists. Everybody contributed in the Wembanyama game. It was very fun. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys did too. Check out Locked On Spurs if you're interested in more on the rookie phenom. Rick Carlisle, 900th win, doused in water after the game. Very cool night in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. We'll have more tomorrow with a new guest. It's going to be very fun talking with the house that Kami built. Some of you may know him from the land of Pacers Twitter, contributing at 8.9 seconds. And 2 more games this week for us to talk about here on the Locked On Pacers podcast. Going to talk some about Ben Mathurin this week and a lot about the Pacers games and what they're doing as their opponents toughen up. Larry Markkinen, tough matchup for them coming in. Giannis, a very tough matchup for them coming in. We'll see how they handle those. Can they stay over 500 before they go to Philly for 2 real tough ones next week. We'll have it here on the Locked On Pacers podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed today's show. I'm on Twitter at Tony R. East, and the show was on Twitter at Locked On Pacers for the latest thoughts and more on this Pacers basketball team. Hope you guys had a fantastic day and enjoyed this episode. We will see you soon.